Here we go.
There's no title bigger than this.
It is great to be back.
Welcome to the Worlds.
Wow.
Just superb.
Grit and determination.
Does her. Gets it done.
What darting entertainment this is.
Brilliant finishing.
And he saves his skin.
Pummeling the trebles again. Oh, he's in again.
There it is.
Nathan Aspel's fired up.
Composure and skill.
Oh, magnificent from Van Gerwen.
He's up there to prove a point.
And this time, Peter gets it right. It's all right on the night at the Alexandra Palace.
Good evening. There's a little game of darts on Avia. Welcome to the William Hill World Darts Championship. I'm Dan Dawson. This is Magic Murph Chris Murphy, and we have the Flying Scotsman Gary Anderson and the Iceman Gerwyn Price contesting the biggest game in darts, the Sid Waddell Trophy on the line, £500,000 in ranking money, and because that is ranking money, it would also see Gerwyn Price take the #1 spot in the world for the first time in how long? MVG wouldn't be top of the rankings, Murph?
7 years.
7 years. What was happening 7 years ago in Gerwyn Price's life? Still a rugby player.
He was. And
still a rugby player.
the man behind the TV was free, apparently. We're going to free him.
I haven't introduced the man behind the TV. We have he's sort of like, if you imagine a sort of broken, withered version of Elon Musk, he's just behind there. That's what he is. Wave. There
You can't actually reach above the TV.
He can't. He's a tiny little homunculus who just operates the buttons. Anyway, hopefully he's going to take us through the routes to the final for our two guys. Shall we start with Gezi, man behind the telly? Yes, we are going to start with Gerwyn Price.
Good at his job, isn't he?
Okay.
Price.
Yeah.
I was talking about Price.
Oh, Price, yeah. He went behind in this one.
Yeah.
And he really didn't convince, did he?
One of 3 times that he's been to the final set in this tournament. And Gerwyn Price, yeah, Jamie Lewis, very, very impressive in the early stages. But yeah, not convincing. It wasn't a sign that Price was going to go on and reach the final here, but he did the job, which is often the case in the first match before Christmas. Get the job done and come back, and it can be a different tournament. So he did enough. He got through.
Well, look, I mean, he was coming to this year's William Hill World Championship as the second favourite for the title. It wasn't the sort of display that really laid down a marker, but as you can see, he ran away with that deciding set pretty much. It looked like he was going to, till Jamie Lewis had that weird miscount. But look, he got the job done. That's all you can expect of him. Were you more impressed when he took on Brendan Dolan? Because I certainly was.
Yeah, I mean, we saw there Lewis took him to a last set, but he won that 3-0, having lost the previous set 3-0, by the way. But yeah, Dolan really gave him a game. Brendan Dolan is a very different player this tournament, a faster player. And I actually thought if he did that against Price, it would play into Price's hands, but it didn't seem to. And Price had to dig deep, hit a 170 finish here in this match as well. And at a potentially crucial time, the opening leg of that final set there, when, you know, had he lost that, he could have been in big trouble.
Yeah, and
Dolan was waiting on 41 to break.
Yeah, and that was the key thing. He was finishing incredibly, and he really needed it, because by the end you can see both men on 72 in a last leg decider, 1 dart at tops, and they're the finishers that win your games, that win your titles, and potentially win your world titles. Now, Gerwyn Price, back-to-back Grand Slam champion, Grand Prix champion, World Cup champion, World Series of Darts finals champion as well. That's 5 big TV titles, one of them admittedly in pairs. It's not a surprise that this man could be the #1 in the world, is it?
Certainly not. He has been the form player, certainly for the last year, perhaps for the last couple of years. And obviously a 2-year system will reflect that at the end of it. Gerwyn Price, had to fight against Dolan, didn't really have to fight that much against Mervyn King, kind of eased through this one. I was a little bit surprised because King had looked like a real contender coming into this.
But all we've done from Gerwyn Price is see him average in the 90s at this
high
point.
90s,
high 90s for the Dolan game and this game. It's not top gear, but he's beating, and he dismissed King, who was averaging high 90s himself.
This was proper business-like stuff from Gerwyn Price, and this is where he's perhaps, or I certainly first started to think, actually really he is a massive, massive contender in this tournament.
This looked like he was in total control of it, and the least impressed I've been with him in the tournament was how this finished, because he fell over the line. The last 11 legs, Gurney won 8 of them, but 3 that Price won were in that deciding set, and he needed them.
Yeah, I agree. He should have probably got rid of Daryl Gurney earlier, but the big thing here, and the same that happened in the Brendan Dolan match, he's got bottle, hasn't he? When it comes to pinning that important dart, the most important dart, the one to win a match, we haven't seen Gerwyn Price flap in this tournament. And you can see the relief on him there. He knows that he was in a game, and he knows potentially that could have been an exit point for him.
Now, he went 2 sets down to Stephen Bunting in this one, which is a bigger gap than we'd seen for him to overcome, and yet he was still able to do it. Now, I was actually much more impressed with this than I was against, say, Gurney, because he just found this consistent level, and you felt that he was reeling Bunting in all the way through the game.
Yeah, it was 2 sets. Was he 2 sets down a couple of times?
3-1 down. No, 3-1 down, and then it was 4-3 down. Yeah.
But he's behind at a time of the match as it was reaching its conclusion, and won those last 3 sets. I will say, watching it, I never felt like he was going to lose that match, Gerwyn Price. Bunting was brilliant, but I feel like Price was in control of himself and the tie.
And a record-breaking game, 13-ton plus checkouts, another one there. And once again, it's that one dart at double. Gerwyn Price is able to take it out. They're the key checkouts. They're the ones that, Taylor and Van Gerwen at the best. You give them a sniff, and it goes.
One of the reasons that this match was as close as it was is because Bunting was taking out big finishes when Price had missed a dart for a double or left a double. 8 of those ton plus checkouts going the way of the Welshman as well. So certainly showing another aspect to his game.
Now, we haven't seen the best of Gerwyn Price. We haven't so far, but what we have done is see some clinical finishing. So far for the tournament, he is hitting more than 47% of his darts at double. Now, if you're anywhere near that 50% mark over such an enormous span of the number of legs we've seen him play, that puts him in a great position going into this final, doesn't it?
Yeah, and usually such a good double top merchant, but in the last match we saw how good he was on double 10. He went on an amazing run.
10 out of 10, the first 10 he hit.
Superb. So if he's got that as a kind of cover when he misses double top, if he's finishing anything like that in this final, his name could well be on the trophy.
Okay, well, let's have a look at Gary Anderson's run to the final, because he's no stranger to finals in this tournament. This is his 5th. It started with a very tricky game against Madars Razma. Madars Razma was on the 9-darter, 2 legs in succession. Looked like he was coming back, but 161 check out there from Gary, and I think that probably was the moment when you thought, well, this game's done now.
Yeah, I think the game actually did Gary good, I think, to have a little bit of a battle, but not enough of one to kind of have a real scare. Gary Anderson, I think it probably did him good and set him up nicely for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, well, you can see here Madars Razma, he had a little chance to try and force a deciding set, and I tell you what, if he'd done that, things might have been very, very different. You could see how slow Madars is. Doesn't play the game at Gary's pace. That's a theme we'll return to in a moment. This is when he struggled. The only times we've seen him struggle in this tournament are when people haven't let him play the game he wants, because Mensur Suljovic nearly broke him mentally just by hanging around and taking his time.
What we've probably forgotten about this match is how well Gary closed it out from that position. Won the last 6 legs to see off Mensur Suljovic. Quite remarkable. Considering the way that he was feeling, and he showed us all exactly how he was feeling during that match, and he told us all after it as well. But yeah, I think his argument was that Mensur was slow sometimes and then fast sometimes, and that's what he didn't like, whereas Madars in the previous round was constantly the same pace, albeit not one at the same kind of speed as Gary.
Oh, a little fist bump there. They're all friends, really. So he certainly wasn't friends with Wayne Mardell and Rod Harrington, who may have actually annoyed Gary into winning a 3rd world title here, because following that match, Devon Peterson played at a nice pace for Gary, dismissed. Not his best stuff, but dismissed.
Yeah, a bit of a breeze really, this one for Gary. And yeah, got the bit between his teeth, got the anger. As said all along, he's come into this tournament with no expectations. Came into this year, last year, 2020, with no expectations at all, and said he was going to really start hitting the practice board, practice with Ryan Searle after this tournament, and really go for it for the next season. But this match actually showed Gary was fired up. He's just ready to demolish his opponents again, and that's exactly what he did to Devon, who has been a top player in 2020, but not really in this tournament.
Yeah, I think so. But what we have seen is a big beefy darts player who's made a breakthrough in 2020, who has been a real threat in this tournament, is who Gary faced in the quarterfinals in Dirk van Duijvenbode. And once again, Dirk has gone into this game, played it exactly how Gary wants to play, and lo and behold, he gets walloped 5-1.
Yeah, and again, I think you've summed it up correctly. He played into Gary's hands. And if all's going right for Gary and all's going well, it's easy for him. finishes like that 1-3-1 just at will from Gary Anderson, because if he can just walk up and just throw his darts, as he keeps telling us that's what he wants to do, it does look very easy on the eye. It looks very comfortable, and he feels very comfortable and is able to produce his best stuff.
Well, this game was followed by that game with Dave Chisnell. Now, Chizzy had just produced the performance of his life. They play out this semi-final where it's 16 all in legs at one point, although Gary's a set ahead, and then he just bursts away right at the end. We still haven't seen him play his best stuff, but he is sort of marginally improving. Are you getting the feeling like he was at the match play where he's playing himself into some form? Because then it came to a shuddering halt in the final. It's whether he can keep it going.
Yeah, I think it will be different. We'll come on to that in a moment. But it's interesting how he analysed these two matches, because the averages were almost identical.
Yeah.
But Gary thought that he'd played brilliantly against Dirk van Duijvenbode, but then not very well at all against Dave Chisnell. Actually, I thought he played well enough. Over 100 average. Chisnell played decent stuff, albeit nowhere near as good as his performance against Michael van Gerwen. That was heroic. But yeah, Anderson just did the job, and again a burst right at the end of the match to get over the line. That's the experience that he's got at Alexandra Palace that other players don't have.
Well, look, I mean, I think the thing that really sort of derailed Gary's perception of that game was there were missed doubles from both men. Gary was only hitting about 1 in 3 of his darts at double. Had he been hitting that sort of 45-50%, which Gerwyn Price has been hitting over the course of the tournament, you just walk away thinking, I've got that leg out of the way with very little fuss. You haven't had those 3, 4, 5 darts missed at double where you immediately think, it doesn't matter if you're on an 11 darter, you just think, well, I'm playing rubbish here. This is not what I can do. He wants to get into that flow, which brings us neatly on to the final itself, because as we've said, people have played, apart from Mensur, people have kind of played into Gary's hands. We know that Gerwyn Price is not going to do anything to make life easy for Gary Anderson, neither in terms of the standard of darts he's playing, but in the manner that he's going to play the game. How big a factor do you think the history these two have is going to play in the final tonight?
I think it will be huge, actually. I watched back the Grand Slam match from 2018 earlier today, and watching it, actually, Gary was getting involved in the shenanigans in the early part of the match. It was only when he started to lose it, when it started to slip away, that he started to call out Gerwyn Price for what he thought he was doing wrong. They had a bit of contact on the stage. That's a long time ago now.
And they've played each other a number of times since. 5
times, and Gerwyn Price has won 4 of those matches. So he does seem to have got the better of Gary since then, albeit the one that Gary won was at the Masters and he won it 10-2. But all the other meetings, Gerwyn Price has got the job done, and he will play exactly like he wants to play, which will stop Gary Anderson playing like he wants to play. And I think if Gary wins the first few sets and starts sort of strolling away, then we might see him not react at all. But if it gets close, it gets tight, or he gets behind, I think it could be a big factor in the match. And I'm not saying that it means that Gary will lose the match, because as we've seen, the more fired up he's got, often the better he's got.
Well, that's often been the case with Gary Anderson. If you annoy him, then that's when he finds some extra gears. And he said himself in his interviews, even thanked Wayne Mardle for saying exactly what we've been saying all the way through this tournament, that if you're playing Gary Anderson, don't let him play exactly as he wants, because he will annihilate you. He's one of the greatest players ever to throw a dart. But he said, well, that's fired me up now. That's got me going. And it's always been the case with Gary Anderson that you will not like him when he is angry. And it's really this man who has made him angry and stood up to him over the last couple of years. Not many people have been able to do that.
No, not all. And another different aspect, as opposed to that big Grand Slam final, is the fact that they would have played a game in the afternoon that day, whereas today they've had 24 hours to mentally prepare. Do you think that Gerwyn Price would have been planning his game plan, and do you think Gary Anderson will have been trying to sort of calm himself down and say, don't react to whatever, just play your own game?
I think Gerwyn Price over the course of this tournament has actually been quite reserved. Yes, we've seen some big screaming celebrations and things like that, but we haven't seen a lot of the time. He's just trying to keep a lid on things, because I think he now believes that his talent, and he said as much, if he plays his A game, he beats everybody, Michael van Gerwen included. That's what he believes. And seeing him over the course of this year, you can make a very strong case for it. I mean, when he beat Peter Wright in the second Grand Slam final that he won, I mean, he was unstoppable. If we get a display like that from him, then even Gary Anderson, if he finds top gear, is going to have a very, very tough game on his hand. They're both capable of averaging 107 in this final. That is a possibility. It's unlikely that either of them do, but it could be that both of them do, and I really don't know what happens then. But he was batting away. He played very straight bat stuff. I'm just going to play my darts and get on with it. Gary sort of tried to do the same. I think what's really going to be the test is if it gets close. If it gets close and it does get tense, then we will see how much Gary Anderson cares, despite all his protestations otherwise. We know he cares. He's been saying that being world number one has been on his mind every day of this tournament.
Yeah, and it would be a remarkable feat to be the first world number one in 7 years. Only the third in, I think, around 13 years, Phil Taylor holding that position before Michael van Gerwen, and just the fourth world number one, by the way, in this order of merit era, since he started using the 2-year ranking prize money system. So a remarkable achievement it would be. Gary Anderson would move into the top 4 if he won the tournament. That's a ranking position more befitting of his stature as a professional darts player. But I tell you what, I think we've got 2 players who deserve to be in the final, and the script is written, isn't it? What a fantastic final it could be. There could be fireworks, but I think there'll be some incredible darts as well. It could be the fitting final for one of the most dramatic World Championships I can remember.
Absolutely. Well, look, the fans haven't been here, sadly. It would be incredible in the hall tonight. It will still be incredible on that stage, because we have one of the all-time greats of this sport, a 2-time winner of the World Championship, Gary Anderson, versus a man, the first Welshman ever to make the final, the first Welsh major champion in PDC history, and he's looking to win his first world title. And if he does get it, then I tell you what, with the amount of stuff that he's won in a very short period of time, going to world number one as well, who knows what this could be looking, a few years from now, looking back on tonight. It is the Flying Scotsman versus the Iceman, and we'll leave you with their words. They can sum it up better than we can. Enjoy the final tonight. It's been a fabulous tournament, and this is a fabulous showpiece for it.
I'm just going to go up there and try to play darts. You know, we've had the conversation before, people saying that I'm moaning about slow players. It's nothing to do with slow players. It's a carry on in between. We've all watched darts and snooker, and you don't get it snooker, you don't get it golf. You know, just play darts. You know, if I get my backside scalped, fair dues. You know, well played. Just try to play the game.
We also know you've got some history with Gary. Are you worried that can get in the way of taking on the biggest game of your life?
I'm more experienced now, and you know, that was a few years ago, and it was a bit of needle, but you know, we're both professional. If he comes through the game, or Chizzy, but I'm gonna go up there. I'm just gonna give him my all, play my game like I play every other time, and yeah, if it's enough, it's enough. But hopefully, I can improve on today, improve on what I've done definitely in the beginning of the tournament. But yeah, it was decent today, but another couple of percent and I'll be fine.